and just the nature of spirit itself. We're all getting pretty darn full today. How's everybody this morning? Yeah, wasn't that good? Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, join the choir? Okay, maybe rehearse on Thursdays. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ruby. But also thank you, rest of the choir, too. Sue asked me to remind you that both Reverend Sue and Shri are our practitioners on duty today, and they're here to hold consciousness for you and also to support you in prayer after the service. If something gets shook up, if you get overly full and need to go on a weight reduction program of certain aspects of your life that you don't want to take with you anymore, so they'll help you with that. They're our weight reduction experts. So we're talking this morning about wholeness. Wholeness. And the vision that we have with that is that we see our world with an understanding of wholeness. And as we work on this year-long theme of creating a world that works for all, that all the centers for spiritual living around the world are working with, we take in mind this idea that we are all whole. And what a perfect week to remember that, right? With this coming week, because there's a lot of invitation to forget our wholeness. Have you noticed? But we are whole. I saw a little picture on Facebook from a Christian church that had a picture of Donald and it had a picture of Hillary on it, and it said, both of these people are children of God. And underneath it said, yes, both. And so it's an invitation to remember we are all one of, expressions of the individual presence, the infinite presence of God. That is who all of us are, even the ones that we don't agree with. Because we can disagree with a person, and yet they can still be one with the infinite presence of God, as can we, right? Okay. And so holding that idea, I said last week that it's not so much who we elect this week, it's who we elect to be this week. It's going to shift our consciousness and shift our world. So God itself, the infinite presence itself, is whole. It couldn't be anything else. If you want to know all the logic behind that, there's a wonderful book by Thomas Troward that takes that and analyzes it from a whole, perfectly logical, legalistic perspective, that because of this, then therefore this, and therefore this, all is a whole and all is a unity. So if you want that, see me afterwards. I'll reference you to the book. But otherwise, just if you'll take my word for it, the infinite presence is a whole. Can't be otherwise. Can't be separate from itself, or it wouldn't be infinite. Okay? And so that is the nature of the infinite. And if it's true of God, it has to be true of us, because if it's infinite, then we, all of us, are in God, are in this infinite presence. We are in that right now. We are expressions of that. So guess what? You and I are whole, perfect, and complete right now. Despite our laundry list of all the reasons why we think we're not, right? I don't know if you have one, but I have one. And so can we remember that besides and in spite of that laundry list, we're still whole, perfect, and complete right this second. And then the laundry list starts to dissolve. Ernest Holmes in the book Can We Talk to God says, each person is a center of self-conscious life. God is the life principle animating us. You and I are animated. We are given life. We are expressed as God in form. We are God in form. Yes? Yeah. We are God in form. Ralph Waldo Emerson reminds us that man is an inlet and may become an outlet for the divine. We are inlets. We already are. Nothing you have ever done, nothing you ever will do could make you not an inlet to God, because we're already here. We're already plugged in. We are already in that presence, and we are inlets. And as we align ourselves with it, then we can become an outlet to the flow of Spirit moving through us. We get to be open to that flow. And the flow of Spirit is always for greater good. Spirit is in a conspiracy for our good. The universe is in a conspiracy for our good. That's the conspiracy theory that I'm subscribing to. Okay? And I'll have to tell you, the first time somebody told me that, I wanted to punch him in the face. Okay? Because my life did not feel like the universe was in a conspiracy for my good. But still, it was, whether I recognized it or not. Can I remember that? So stuff happens and we forget that, don't we? We forget it. I forget it. I sometimes think of life as a game of hide and seek, where we've kind of hidden the truth from ourselves, and then we get to wake up and remember it. And isn't that fun? Sometimes it's not. But isn't it overall... Well, trust me, I know. But when we find ourselves, doesn't that feel good? And all of a sudden, all the past stuff, all the journey to get there falls away. You know? Cynthia and I are celebrating our second year anniversary of the day that she walked into my office and kind of let me know that she was interested in me. How shall I say that? It was yesterday. And I had to laugh because on the same day, 2 years prior to that, I was filing my divorce papers and it finalized my divorce. Okay? And it was interesting, and that came up as memories on Facebook. She got the memory on Facebook that this was the day that we had connected together. I got the memory on Facebook that this was the day that I had filed for my divorce. Okay? Now trust me, when I met her, when we started going together, none of that mattered anymore, right? All that pain, all that suffering, all that stuff was dissolved into the past, and what I've got to focus on was the current love, the present moment. And in that moment, as we awaken to the truth of who we are, all of the journey to get there falls away. There's a Zen saying that the fisherman uses a net to catch the fish, but once he catches the fish, he forgets the net, he discards the net, and keeps the fish. Okay? We're here to get the fish in life, right? Isn't there Douglas Adams' book, Thank You for All the Fish? Goodbye and Thank You for All the Fish. That's one of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. But we want that essence of what we want. And the process to get there becomes irrelevant once we have it. The process to get there. So we play this game of hide and seek, and as we reawaken to the truth, we're in the process of coming to ourselves, as it talks about in the story of the prodigal son. We are coming to ourselves, and as soon as we do, the universe rushes in to support us, to encourage us. Just like the father in that story rushed in with new clothes, a ring, and a barbecue back home. Big party. Florence Scovel Shinn, who wrote the book The Game of Life and How to Play It, says the game we're playing is a game of giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. Giving and receiving. What you sow, you reap. Every spiritual teacher throughout history has taught that. What you put out is what comes back to you. As you sow, so shall you reap. And so as we put out, we receive back. That's which we do, because we're in a wholeness. We're in a wholeness. Nothing is lost. Nothing is separate. Nothing is lost in that wholeness. I joked this morning at the first service, not even my car keys are lost in the wholeness. Okay? They're not. I might not know where they are at any particular moment. Actually, at this moment I know where they are, fortunately. But they're not lost, are they, in a whole? Okay? By the way, if you ever lose anything, you think you've lost it, that's one of the ways to bring it back, is you just remember there's an infinite mind. I am totally connected to the infinite mind, and that mind reveals to me right here, right now, where that item is. I can tell you, if you're clear on it, it works powerfully. Nothing is separate. You and I are not separate from each other. Nothing is separate. The greatest sin, if you will, mistaken idea that we can have is that idea of separation, that I am separate from God, I am separate from my good, I am separate from somebody else or you out there, the other, or that I am separate even from myself. Okay? Everything else, all the other unhappinesses that we have in life stem from that belief. And so if you're ever stuck in a place where you're not quite sure, you're unhappy and you're not quite sure what's going on, look for the place where you're having the belief that I am separate from something, and start to remember the truth. You're not separate. You're one with. You may not be connected at the moment, but you're not separate from. You're one with. There is no other, because all there is God. All there is God. Scientists tell us that energy is everywhere, and energy is infinite. It's never lost, it's never gained, it just changes form. The energy of the universe just changes form. Nothing is ever lost, nothing is ever gained, nothing is ever separate. We are just playing with moving the energy around in the ways that we want to. And when we get confused, when we get hurt, when we get afraid, we forget that. We forget that we're working within that wholeness. But we can use, we sometimes use our imaginations, our imaging faculty to create stories about that forgetfulness, right? It's called worry. Worry is using our imaging faculty to outpicture negative outcomes. I did that first service too, negative incomes. And sometimes that's what we're outpicturing is a negative income, right? But it's an outcome of a negative income. We make up all sorts of stories out of our imagination about that. One of the stories that we create as a culture and have for thousands of years is some sort of an ending story, right? The world is ending. How many of you have heard the world is ending since you were kids? Okay? It's going to end next week, next month, next year. Okay? They've been saying that since I think the world started. You know, there's historical references to it, you know, in the Greeks and everybody else. The world is coming to an end. My life is coming to an end. Oh my God. Ever since I was 20, when I would have an upset stomach that would kind of linger past where I thought it should, I remember always sitting there going, oh my God, maybe I have stomach cancer. I think I'm going to die. You know, finally, at about my mid-50s, I was sitting there going, you know, I've been saying this story for 30-something years, and it still hasn't, I'm still alive. Maybe I should give up the story. By the way, I would never actually get worried about it enough to go to a doctor to have it checked out. I just would have the thought running through, okay? So we make up these stories. We make up these stories. Right now, we have a wonderful story going in our culture that says, if so-and-so gets elected on Tuesday, America is going to come to an end, as we know it, okay? Wonderful story. And some people think it's if this person gets elected, and some people think it's this person, and some people, you know, whatever, okay? We have these wonderful stories. One of the other wonderful stories about American civilization coming to an end is it's about these young people. They just don't get it. They're just not carrying it on. They can't spell. They can't get off their cell phones. Look at the culture and what's happening. Do you remember that our parents said that about us? Our parents' generation said that about us, and their parents' generation said that about them, and their parents' generation said that about them. And I forget whether it was Aristotle or Socrates also said it about the young people in his generation, like 3,000 years ago. Okay? So we've been having that ending story that these are going to be the end of it. You know, we have stories that the church, you know, maybe it's this church or any other church, is going to come to an end. It's going to be gone. Churches in general, religion in general, it's done, it's over with, its day has come and gone. Nobody's going to church anymore. You hadn't heard that message because you're here, I know that. Okay? But if you read some of the religious, you know, stuff out there, that, you know, a whole lot of religions are worrying about, you know, why is religion coming to an end and how it's going downhill. These are all stories we make up in our imagination. They're fun to get scared with, right? Kind of like a good horror movie, a good scary movie. Okay? And then once we make up these ending stories, we look for a savior. We look for somebody to save me. Jesus was a great example. He was a savior of his people. Unfortunately, the people of his time didn't want what he was saving them from. They wanted him to kick the Romans out, right? And he came in with it. You know, most leaders who are really real leaders have a higher vision, okay, than most of the people that are working with. So he comes in with his vision that says, I'm here to free you and let you enter my Father's kingdom, which is within you. Okay? Who cares about the Romans? If you do this kingdom, everything else will take care of itself. If you do this kingdom. But of course, they didn't want to hear that. They wanted some military leader to kick the Romans out, and so they got rid of him. People tried to kill the Buddha, his own family, because they didn't like where he was leading them. Okay? We have political leaders. We've always had political leaders we look to as great heroes, right? You know, I know that this person is going to save us. Okay? We have heroes of some sort or other. They're going to save us. So we make up these savior stories instead of recognizing what? We're the savior. There's a story of an old monastery in Europe that had been once a thriving monastery. beautiful grounds. People from the nearby villages was coming to picnic on the grounds. And over time, the monastery fell into disrepair. The monks began to age out and die off until it was down to just 4 old monks. And the grounds were not as good a repair, and the people were no longer coming to picnic. And the 4 monks were sitting there talking amongst each other, going, what do we do? We're the last ones. We can't just have this end. We need to do something. We need to bring some new life into this monastery. What do we do? And they didn't have an answer, and they didn't have an answer. And what they knew also was off a little ways in the woods was a hut. And there was this Jewish rabbi who would come from the town to meditate in the hut and pray in the hut every once in a while. And they could, because they were sensitive to the energy around them, they knew when he was there. They could feel the prayers, they could feel the consciousness there. And so they asked the Father Abbot one time, will you go talk to the rabbi the next time he's in the hut? Ask him what ideas he has. He's a very sacred spiritual man. Ask him what ideas he has. And so the next time that they were aware that he was in the hut, the Father Abbot went over to the rabbi, knocks on his door, and he says, I hate to disturb your meditations and your prayers, but can we talk for a little bit? I'm having some challenges with the monastery. Can we talk? And the rabbi says, sure, come in. Please, have some tea with me. And so they're sitting there drinking their tea, and the Father Abbot pours out his heart with all the problem and the stuff that's happening with the monastery, and their fear and their sadness about the fact that it seems to be coming to an end. And the rabbi shakes his head, and he says, I know. He says, the young people these days, they don't want to be rabbis. They're not entering any rabbinical training. They're just about the world itself. And they spend a couple of hours just kind of commiserating together. And so the Father Abbot says, well, thank you. Eventually says, thank you very much for your time. And it was really wonderful to have a talk with you. And I know the best for you and hope that your congregation grows. And he says, and likewise for your monastery. And so the Father Abbot walks out, and the rabbi is standing at the door watching him go and thanking him for being there. And the Father Abbot goes out, closes the gate, and just as he closes the gate, the rabbi says to him, by the way, one more thing. He says, I forgot to tell you. He says, what's that? He says, one of you is the Messiah. One of the 4 of you is the Messiah, and closes the door. So Father Abbot is like walking back to the monastery, kind of like with his head exploding. One of us is the Messiah? What does that mean? And so he gets back to the monastery, gets back to the monks, and they say, what were the ideas that he had? What's the great knowledge that the rabbi had? He said, he didn't have any ideas. He said, he's going through the same thing himself, and he doesn't know what to do. But then he said, at the very last, as I was walking away, he said something really weird. He said, one of us is the Messiah. One of the 4 of us is the Messiah. And they're kind of in shock. One of us? And they're all contemplating this later on. They're going, well, maybe it's Brother Francis. He's so quiet and he's so sweet. He doesn't really carry his load around the monastery. We've kind of given him a little bad time for that, but maybe he's the Messiah. Well, but maybe it's Brother Joe over here. He's been here for a long time. Can't be that Brother Jerome. He's a cranky old son of a gun. No, he can't be the Messiah. What if he is? It must be Father Abbot. It must be Father Abbot because he's so sacred and he's been here for all this time. He's the Father Abbot, of course. Maybe it's him. And they all kind of eventually came to one other question. What if it's me? What if it's me? What if I'm a Messiah and I haven't been acting like it and I don't even know it? And so they all said, to each other and to themselves, it's like, we need to dedicate ourselves more to our spiritual practice. We need to really, really feel our prayers and really, really study and really, really do our work together. And we need to respect each other. And so they started treating each other as if, because they're looking around going, you could be the Messiah. And I don't want to be on the bad side of the Messiah. If you're the Messiah, I don't want to be the one who's been giving you a bad time for 10 years if it turns out that you're the Messiah. Okay? And so they started treating each other with more kindness and more love and more respect. And they started treating themselves, each of themselves, with more kindness, with more love, with more respect, doing their due diligence, doing their spiritual practice. And after a little while, they noticed they were looking out the window one day and there was a family out there picnicking on the lawn. First one in years. And so they walked out and they said, we're happy to see you here. And what brought you here? And the father of the family said, well, when I was a little boy, my parents brought me here to picnic. And he said, I know it's not quite what it used to be, but I love this place. I have such good memories, and I wanted to share them with my children. So I'm bringing them to picnic here. And so they got talking, and one of his boys, one of his sons, said, so what do you guys do here? And so he told him about, what it was like to be a monk. And he says, that sounds interesting. Can I study with you? And the father said, yes. And so he started to study with him. And word got back to the village that these people had picnic out there, and they were still welcomed, and so some more people came, and some more people came, and some more boys were asking, what is it you do here? Not every one of them, but some asked if they could study. And pretty soon this monastery, which had been falling apart and going to its ending story, was once again thriving because each of them remembered what? That they're the Messiah. And each of us is the Messiah. I am, you are the Messiah. When we realize that we are within wholeness, we recognize that each of us is the Messiah. Even that cranky old brother Jerome, or whoever that person is in our lives. We are the Messiah of our own life. As I said last week, it's not so important who we elect this week as who we elect to be this week. We are the leaders of our life. We are. The other thing that Florence Scovel-Shinn talks about is our imagination, or our imaging faculty, and how do we use it? Do we use it for where we want to go, or do we use it to produce negative income outcomes? Do we use it? Are we using it to go in the direction? That's worry. I'm focusing my attention on that. Florence quotes the book of Proverbs, which says, keep thy heart, or imagination, with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. From our imagination, from our heart, flows the life energy. We're directing how Spirit expresses through us with our imagination, with our imaging faculty. What are you asking Spirit to manifest for you with your imaging faculty? Okay? If I'm manifesting and seeing a world that is coming to an end in some way or another, or aspects of my life that is coming to an end in some way or other, the universe says what? It says yes. It's the only thing it can say. The life energy just flows in that direction. Because we're telling it, that's where I want you to flow. If I'm all worried, if I'm all concerned, that's what I'm telling it. Proverbs goes on to say, keep your feet away from evil paths. Now, evil paths just simply means getting off of the path of life. Evil, the word evil is literally live, spelled backwards. Keep yourself off the path of being distracted. Keep yourself off the path of being pulled away by non-truths. We get pulled away by our feelings and our emotions and our fears and our concerns instead of sitting there going, what is the absolute truth of me? What is the truth? What is my wholeness? Keep our feet on that path. So when we align our imagination with the truth of our oneness with that wholeness, we allow the true nature of divinity to flow freely. When we align our imagination with our wholeness, with the truth of ourselves, then we allow that true nature to flow freely, to flow easily. Am I willing to be in alignment with truth? Yes. Am I willing to be in alignment with truth? We're a little running late, so I don't want to do the meditation on this service, but in the previous service, if you want to watch the video, I did a meditation. I'll invite you to practice this, to lift our energy up out of our body to a little over our head. Okay? And from that perspective, be aware of the wholeness that we're part of. I use the metaphor, sometimes we look at our problems as though they're Mount Shasta, right? And we're standing at the base of Mount Shasta, and that's our problem, way 20,000 feet up there, 14,000 feet, whatever it is. Okay? But if we get on an airplane, if we get up on the space station, and we look back, Mount Shasta doesn't look so big, right? Okay? And our problems don't look so big as we elevate up beyond. And so can we take the time to elevate out of our body, out of our sense of this problem, and have a higher look back down at it. And take that imagination and our imaging faculty and invite it to create a different outcome in my life than the one that I might have been expecting. And use our imagination to focus ourselves in that direction. So I invite you to play with that as an idea, to breathe that into, to play with that to where we really know it in our body this week. When they train you to race cars, I'm not talking a football metaphor, isn't that amazing? When they train you to race cars, one of the things that they train is that if you begin to lose control of the car, you want to put your attention on the curve that you want to make, where you want to go, the apex of the turn, and not look at the wall that you're afraid of hitting with the car. Okay? And most of us, when we lose control of our cars, the first thing we do is we look, what am I going to hit? Yesterday we were coming back from Sacramento, and going to Sacramento, I should say, and we had this semi that decided to move over into our lane as we were literally right beside the semi on I-5. We're doing about 70, 75 miles an hour, and there's not a whole lot of room there, and poor old Cynthia, having just been in a car wreck, 2 weeks ago, is like sitting there, she's all tensed up, and I'm focusing on where's the car going, where do I need to keep it? I don't want to get it off onto the grassy median because I can know the consequences of that, and it's just like I focus on that pavement strip right in front of me. It was narrow, but it was enough to fit. We had our little rental car, it was enough to fit the car, and we got out of it alive. I had a few things to say about the driver. I had a few choice words about just the event that was happening, but we came out alive. Can we focus on where we want to go? Can we take our attention no matter what is happening out here? And there's a lot of distractions out here that want to say, look at me, look at me, look at me, go this way, right? Yes? You've noticed that? Right. And we say, what do we really want? What's my real truth? What is the highest truth in this, and can I stand with that? So I invite you this week, as all the distractions come, as they always are. This week is maybe a little more intense, but they always are. A month from now will be the Christmas buying season, right? Okay, and you'll get all these, you need to buy this, and you need to buy this, and your spouse won't be happy unless you buy him or her this, and all that stuff. And you need to say, what's the truth of what I want to do with Christmas? Okay? And all that stuff. So we stay in that truth. Can we stay in that truth? So this week, the spiritual practice that I invite you to engage in is, first of all, to contemplate your oneness with the infinite wholeness. To really get, I am one with that whole. I am one with it. Nothing of me is separate or outside the divine nature of the infinite good, the infinite love, the infinite joy of this universe. Nothing of me is separate from that. Nothing of the body of my affairs, all that stuff around me, is separate from that. And let that truly sink into where it becomes subjective. Get it at the gut level. And then secondly, use your imagination. Practice using your imagination. Take an area in your life that you've been worried about, that you've been concerned about, and use your imagination to direct it where you want to go. I've been scared that this is going to be the outcome. I'm going to use my imagination and say, what's the highest good that I can imagine about this? A good that blesses me and everyone involved in this situation and circumstance. How can I go there? Not even how can I go there, just I'm willing to visualize going there. Let the how be up to spirit. You don't have to figure that out. I want to go there. I know this is the highest and greatest good. I want to be an embodiment of the highest and greatest truth in this circumstance and situation. So that's the two spiritual practices that I'll invite you to engage in. Are you willing to play with that this week? Cool, me too. I want to close with a quote from Ernest Holmes. This is from his epic poem, The Voice Celestial. He says, and this is actually kind of the voice of spirit talking back. And it says, you must escape at last from bondage to the sense of separation. Hold it true that he is not alone, who knows that he is ever one with the eternal me. The secret of existence is unbarred, and even now the temple bell is heard, inviting all to worship at the shrine of the eternal truth. This is the sign that he will find the Father Spirit hid within himself, and that it will do whatever he has bid, and become willing to do whatever that Spirit within us has bid. Fear not anything on earth nor in the universe. I'll repeat that. Fear not anything on earth nor in the universe. Unlike the prison door, the mind unbarred is free forevermore, and superstition and belief in two. So let us this week let go of our belief in two. Let us let go of our belief in otherness. Let us look at everything. As I look at Cher right here, Cher and I are one. As I look at every one of you, you and I are one. As you look at each other, each of you is one with each other. We are one with all of life. All of life. So let us take that in this week. So moving into prayer, recognizing that there is only that one presence, that one life energy, Breathing that in and out. Just noticing the breath of life in our body, the beating of our hearts. Recognizing that we don't even know how to beat our own heart. We don't know how to take in the oxygen and move it out into our blood system, but there is an animating quality of life within us that knows how to do that. And we call that animating quality God, Spirit, the universe, the Tao, Buddha mind, Vishnu, Ram, whatever name we give it. Beyond all the names. That life energy, that aliveness is all there is. All there is. It is completely whole. It could not be divided against itself. And because it is all there is, as it animates our lives, we become ever more aware that we are one with it, that we are one of it, that we are this life individualized and expressed in the beautiful ways that each of us brings. We let go of the idea of heroes and villains and simply see the divine. We wake up from the game of hide and seek and become aware and awake. And so I speak my word that this week each of us remembers this as our truth. Each of us remembers the truth of who we are, the capital T truth of who we are, God informed. The capital T truth of who everyone else is, God informed. The capital T truth of what this country is, a divine idea in the mind of God. What this world is, a divine idea in the mind of God. We let go of our fearful imaginings and stand in that truth, knowing that, as Ernest Holmes says, 1 plus God is a majority. We stand in that energy, we stand in that consciousness with trained, focused thought. And allow that energy, that truth, to express through us. We don't have to make it happen. We simply have to be openings to that which already wants to happen. And so I know that this week we each remember that as our truth. We each embody that as our truth in greater and more wonderful, more beautiful ways. We lift above the problems. We lift above the lists. We lift above the scary dreams and awaken to our truth. And in gratitude for each of us who is saying yes to this, in gratitude for this awakening that is happening right here, right now, I'm so grateful for the spirit that moves through it all. I'm so grateful. And so I release this word into that process that we call the law, that process of manifesting that word into form in the most beautiful, blessed ways possible, ways that are good for all involved. Knowing it is already so in our minds, we've established it as so, and so the universe must say yes and establish it as so also. We simply let it be and affirm together, and so it is. Bless you. Thank you.